Srimad Bhagavatam, people will become sane in their transactions. While preparing this commentary on this particular stanza of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have a crisis before us. Our neighboring friend China has attacked the borders of India with a militaristic spirit. We have practically no business in the political field. Yet we see that previously they were both China and India, and they lived peacefully for centuries without ill feeling. The reason is that they lived those days in the atmosphere of God consciousness. In every country over the surface of the world was God-fearing, pure-hearted, and simple, and there was no question of political diplomacy. There is no cause of quarrel between the two countries, China and India, over land which is not very suitable for habitation. And certainly there is no cause of fighting on this issue. But due to the age of quarrel, Kali, which we have discussed, there is always a chance of quarrel on slight provocation. Just for your information, this purport that we are reading was written by Prabhupada in 1961 or 62 when the war broke out. It's not that the purport was written yesterday. This is the first canto that Prabhupada wrote, translated, before coming to the West. So it's in the early 60s. But due to the age of Kali, we have discussed, there's always a chance of quarrel on slight provocation. This is due not to the issue in question, but to the polluted atmosphere of this age. Systematically, there is propaganda by a section of the people to stop glorification of the name and fame of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, there is a great need for disseminating the message of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. It is the duty of every responsible Indian to broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the world. It is the duty of every responsible Indian to broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the world, to do all the supermost good, as well as to bring about the desired peace in the world. Because India has failed in her duty by neglecting this responsible work, there's so much trouble and quarrel all over the world. We are confident that if the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam is received only by the leading men of the world, certainly there will be a change of heart, and actually the people in general will follow them. The mass of people in general are tools in the hands of the modern politicians and leaders of the people. If there is a change of heart of the leaders only, certainly there will be a radical change in the atmosphere of the world. We know that our honest attempt to present this great literature, conveying transcendental messages for reviving the God consciousness of the people in general and re-spiritualizing the world atmosphere, is fraught with many difficulties. Our presenting this matter in adequate language, especially a foreign language, will certainly fail, and there will be so many literary discrepancies despite an honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with all our faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of society will accept this, due to it being an honest attempt to glorify the Almighty Lord. When there is fire in a house, the inmates of the house go out to help from the neighbors, who may be foreigners, and yet without knowledge, the language of victims of the fire express themselves, and the neighbors understand the need, even though not expressed in the same language. The same spirit of cooperation is needed to broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the world. After all, it is a technical science of spiritual values, and thus we are concerned with the techniques and not with the language. If the technique of these great literatures are understood by the people of the world, they will be success. Om Jnana Jnana Shalakya Chakshurmritanena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gyatata Gaviplavo Yasmin Pati Shlokam Abad Garbhati Api Namani Anantasya Yesho Digitaniya Srimanti Gayanti Vinanti Sadhava. So as I said earlier, this is a very significant verse of the Bhagavatam. Actually, every verse of the Bhagavatam is very significant. place a very powerful message, and Prabhupada in his 3 pages of purport further analyzes the current situation. Even though Prabhupada's purport was written in 1960 or 61, when the war took place?
62.
62. If you read Prabhupada's purport, you will see that everything he says in the purport is as relevant today as it was at that time. And Prabhupada had predicted that the Srimad Bhagavatam would be appreciated in leaders all over the world. At the time Prabhupada wrote this purport, he was all alone in India, struggling to come to the West. He was in Vrindavan, reciting at the Radhananda temple, and he was constantly endeavoring to get the means by which he could fulfill his spiritual master's order, which was to take Lord Chaitanya's teachings to the Western world, and also to fulfill Lord Chaitanya's prediction that the holy name would be chanted in every town and village of the world. And later on we see that due to Prabhupada's efforts, not only did he come to the West, but he endeavored hard, worked hard, translated nearly 100 textbooks, which have been further translated in over 70 languages of the world. Today you can get the Srimad Bhagavatam for the first time in history in Chinese, Polish, Russian, Japanese, even Arabic and Urdu. The Urdu translation is now at the 4th canto of Bhagavatam. So these books are now available in almost every major language of the world. And people all over the world are reading these books. Why? Because it gives guidance to humanity. So this 5th chapter is called Narada Muni's Instructions on the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the 4th canto is the appearance of Sri Narada. Narada is one of the of the Lord, Shaktavesha avatar. There are 6 different categories of avatar. Avatar means one who descends. When it descends from where? From the spiritual world. Of course, Hollywood did one good thing. It made the word avatar very popular. Because there was a Hollywood producer who spent $250 million and made a movie called Avatar. Apparently the movie had nothing to do with the real Avatar, but some of the movie producer or director got inspired to give it a spiritual name. So if you can use the word Avatar in any part of the world, then there's a good chance people have heard of the name. But in our understanding, Avatar means when it descends from the spiritual world. So there are different categories of avatars: the Guna Avatar, Manvantara Avatar, Shaktavesha Avatar, Yuga Avatar, and Purusha Avatar, and Guna Avatar. So Lord Narada Muni is one of the avatars, is the Shaktavesha Avatar. Shaktavesha Avatar consists of 2 categories, direct and indirect. Direct is when the Lord Himself descends. Indirect is when He empowers someone. So Narada Muni is empowered to deliver the message of the Lord. He has a single pointed agenda to deliver Narayan to everyone. And Narada Muni has many disciples, countless. On the one hand, he has somebody elevated as Vyasadeva as a disciple. On the other hand, he has a hunter like Mrigari as his disciple. But he purifies everyone to the path of devotional service. So Vyasadeva, as we read in the previous chapter, Vyasadeva had compiled the vast Vedic literature. Initially, there was one Veda, Yajurveda. Vyasadeva divided that into four. He, with the assistance of his followers, wrote the Puranas. And then he wrote the Mahabharata, which presents the philosophy and principles of morality. And even after having compiled, and then he summarized everything in the Vedanta Sutta. But even after having compiled that vast Vedic knowledge for the benefit of humanity, Vyasa was feeling that there's something lacking in his effort. He was feeling some deficiency. Sometimes you work hard, but then you feel that there's something that you should have done and you didn't do. You feel some level of dissatisfaction. So he was just meditating. He was sitting on the banks of the river Saraswati, and he was meditating. What's lacking in my effort? There is something lacking. He didn't feel total satisfaction. And as he was lamenting and meditating, there appeared a great sage, Narada Muni. And Narada Muni appeared and said, the cause of your unhappiness is that you exclusively glorified the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You have not exclusively presented the science of pure devotional service. And this gave birth to the Srimad Bhagavatam, which has been described in the first canto as Igama Kalpa Karo Kalikampa, the ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge. The Vedic knowledge no doubt educates us in the science of God, but within the Vedic literature, there are also aspects for karma kanda and limited sense enjoyment. But Vyasadeva, Narada Muni, wanted to present the path of pure devotional service, because the results you can get by pure devotional service cannot be achieved by motivated devotional service or mixed devotional service. Therefore, in response to the advice given by his spiritual master, Vyasadeva proceeded to give us the Srimad Bhagavatam. We see that even great personalities take guidance. Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, when he appeared on the planet, he also took on Sandipani Muni as his spiritual master. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he appeared, he also took on Ishwar Puri as his spiritual master. Vyasadeva took on Narada Muni as his spiritual master. Narada Muni was guiding him. So therefore it is recommended on the spiritual path that one should take guidance from a self-reliant soul or somebody who is sincerely following a self-reliant soul. And by following the process, one will make spiritual advancement. So Vyasadeva was instructed by Narada Muni to please glorify the process of pure devotional service. There's a statement, there's a sloka in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is as follows. Krishna Bhakta Niskama Ataiva Shanta Bhakti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashanta. The devotees of Krishna, those who are engaged in Niskama service. Niskama means without expecting anything in return. They are always peaceful. And in contrast, Bhakti Mukti Siddhi Kami, the others who are attached to fruitive activities, those who do the yogic process, they want something in benefit. Because they are motivated, they are not peaceful. In other words, if one engages on the path of pure devotional service, even in a worse condition, he will not be disturbed. It is not that if you take to the path of devotional service, you will not have to face any adverse condition. It's not that if you take to the path of devotional service, you will not have to face challenges. You will. This is the nature of ritual work. Even Prabhupada, his intentions are pure, but he had to struggle for a period of time before he could establish the Krishna conscious movement. So the struggle will be there, but because you're engaged in the path of pure devotional service, Krishna, who is within the heart, gives us the strength and determination to progress on the devotional path. So Narada Muni basically instructed Vyasadeva to present philosophy where the path of pure devotional service is mentioned. Now, in these verses in this chapter, Narada Muni points out the importance of words that glorify the Lord. In order to better understand the verse that we're discussing today, we should also review the text of the previous verse, which was text 10. And some, none of you were here, or most of you were not here in the class yesterday. I'll just read text 10 so that you get a better understanding of text 11. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. So over here Narada Muni is saying, those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, which alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole world. The whole world today is in a very polluted state, right, wrong? Yes. Doesn't matter which part of the world you reside in, the calamities are just increasing. Yesterday I was reading that just in America, the frequency of earthquakes in the last 3 years has gone up 5 times. There have been 5 times more earthquakes in the past 3 years as compared to previous years. And this is true in almost every corner of the globe. Now, why is the world's atmosphere getting polluted? Due to lack of spiritual leadership. The society today is being educated to believe, maximize your sense enjoyment. And whether it's educational courses or any other education that we talk about, the ultimate goal is just to facilitate sense enjoyment. So, in this verse, text 10, it is said, those words that do not describe the glories of the Lord are considered by saintly persons to be like a place of pilgrimage for crows. Where do crows hang around generally? Near garbage and filthy places. And where do swans hang around? In a clean environment. You'll never see a swan next to garbage. You only find a swan in a clean environment. So basically there are 2 categories of people in society. The swans and the crows. The crows are very attracted to mundane talk, to filthy propaganda, to activities of sense enjoyment. And these activities have been compared by the great sages to garbage. Garbage is dirt, unwanted things that you throw out of the house. And wherever there is garbage, animals also come and sit there. You see that in India everywhere. Wherever there's garbage, the crows are there. And the swans are attracted to a clean environment. So the spiritualists are compared to swans, and the materialists are compared to garbage. And the transcendentalists derive no pleasure in associating with the gross materialist. Both crows and swans are birds of the same feather, but they have different mental attitudes. One wants a clean environment, the other is ready to stay in a dirty environment. Now, with this background, we can better understand today's verse, which is text 11. What did Narada Muni think? On the other hand, on the one hand, he has already described literature that doesn't glorify the Lord and glorifies material things. If you go to any bookstore, or you go to any newspaper stand, you will see that by and large, most of the literature there is literature not related to the Lord. Am I right? Prabhupada in one of his purport talks about the killing of trees. Trees also have life. To hold a view, the trees and plants don't have life, is wrong. Many years ago, about 25 years ago, I read a report which was published by some research scientists at the University of British Columbia in BC. And they said that they are convinced that the plants also have life. And they not only have life, but they have a system of communicating with each other by releasing different types of airs when they are attacked by different insects. So it's not that the trees don't have life. So what is this literature printed on? Printed on newspapers, on paper. How do they make paper? What is the raw source?
Trees.
Pulp. Where does pulp come from? Trees. So they kill innocent trees just to publish this filthy, pornographic, mundane literature. Innocent trees are slaughtered just for nothing. But then someone may say, oh, but don't you slaughter trees also to print your books? Yes, we do. But when trees are slaughtered, and the pulp is used to make paper, on which the transcendental glories of the Lord are offered, then the trees get benefit. They get benedicted. So it is unfortunate that there is such massive terrorism going on against trees. These days in society, the word terrorist has become a very hot word. Am I right? All over the world we're talking about terrorism. We want to nail down terrorists, and they should, no question. But we're only looking at the terrorists who target human beings. Am I right? What about terrorism against animals? We take all these animals to the slaughterhouse by the millions and kill them. That's also terrorism, am I right? No. Even in countries like India, where they have legislation to protect cows from going to the slaughterhouse, still these innocent cows are neglected and taken to the slaughterhouse. And then exported all the way to Bangladesh so that the cruel people can make some money. So that's also terrorism. That should also be looked into. And then when you kill these innocent trees, that's also terrorism. Because these trees also have a right to live. But unfortunately, unfortunately we only target the terrorists attacking human beings and not the others. So that literature, which is full of descriptions of the transcendental name, fame, form, person of the unknown Lord, that can bring about a peaceful revolution in the minds of people. So what ISKCON is trying to do, what the Vaishnavas are trying to do, is bring around a peaceful revolution in the hearts of people. We are aware of political revolutions, isn't it? Just like in Russia, Lenin led a big revolution at one time. And we all know there have been revolutions in different parts of the world. But what is needed in society today is a spiritual revolution. Spiritual revolution is not accompanied by any weapons. Spiritual revolution is accompanied by the words of the transcendental personality of God. In other words, people as they get exposed to this knowledge, they decide to change their lifestyles. Just like Prabhupada was all alone when he came to the West, planted the seed of Krishna consciousness. And today, there are thousands and thousands of devotees in different parts of the world who are practicing Krishna consciousness, who have come to the realization, yes, I must change my life. I must lead a life based on the teachings of the Lord. And those who are now leading a life based on the teachings of the Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So, what is needed in society is this transcendental literature. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our spiritual grandfather, used to say, if we're told there's a shortage of anything in the world today, it's mainly knowledge about God. So society that as we see today is suffering. If anyone thinks the material world is a phase of enjoyment, it's just an illusion. Doesn't matter which part of the globe you may go to. Doesn't matter whether you're born in a rich family or a poor family. No one can escape the sevenfold mysteries of life. And if we are enjoying good health today, if we are enjoying good positions today, if we are enjoying a respected career today, this is a pious karma. When we get the benefits, when we are in a comfortable position, we're exhausting our pious credits. We all have credits and debits. So when you have good karma, accumulated credits up to a point, so then you get the result, good job, good physique, good education, good stature in society. But you're exhausting the pious results of your previous life. But then how you act today, and if you are experiencing some suffering, we should not lament, because when there is suffering, we are exhausting or liquidating our liabilities. Just like you may have a bank debt of $100,000. So when you pay off that debt, you're left with less cash. But at the same time, you have the satisfaction you've cleared off your debt. So when we are experiencing the suffering in life, we are liquidating our negative karma. Okay, now you've gone through this suffering, so now your liability has been reduced. But when you are experiencing comforts of life, then you're liquidating your pious karma. And if you don't act properly, then you'll become bankrupt. And you'll go the other direction. So, literature which doesn't describe the glories of the Lord will simply create a disturbance in society. So what is needed is literature that is described here. Shrvanti Gayanti Garanti Sadhava. As I said, verse is very famous. Shramanti means to hear. Gayanti means to sing. Sattva means the purified men who are honest. So those who are honest, they engage in glorifying the transcendental personality of Godhead. Now, what is transcendental literature full of? Full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, form, pattern of the Lord. What is the Srimad Bhagavatam full of? Full of the importance of the holy names of the Lord, isn't it? It's the Srimad Swagata Krishna Purneshwana Kirtana. Anybody who hears the glories of the Lord will get purified. A contaminated heart can be cleansed by this hearing process. And the Lord's pastimes, what does the Srimad Bhagavatam contain? Transcendental pastimes of the Lord. In the 10th canto we read about Krishna's pastimes. There are many professional reciters who talk about the Lord's pastimes, and they often jump straight to the Rasa Leela section, or the section where the Lord performed his confidential pastime. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a very systematic plan how the Lord's pastime has been presented. First, the Bhagavatam describes the Lord's childhood pastimes. And when you read about the Lord's childhood pastimes, you see how the Lord, small baby, even as a small baby, he performed Herculean tasks. Putana was a very powerful demon who came with an envious plan. She had poison on her breast with the goal of poisoning Krishna, and how she was killed. How Krishna, when he was only a young child, he pulled two huge trees, Yamunarjuna trees, and he pulled them down. How Krishna showed the whole universe in his mouth to his mother. So after describing these transcendental qualities and these transcendental pastimes, and by the time the reader reads and hears the childhood pastimes of the Lord, there will be no doubt that Krishna is Om Purnam Adha Purnamidam. He is complete in all respects at all. No, in that he is no doubt the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then when you proceed to the Rasa Leela section, you can get a proper understanding of the Lord as self-sufficient in all situations. So, the pastimes of the Lord should be understood through the pages of the Srimad Bhagavatam as presented by the genuine devotees of the Lord or the pure devotees of the Lord. So over here, Narada Muni, this verse is being spoken by Narada Muni. In this chapter, Narada Muni is instructing Vyasadeva as to what should be done. Why? Because Vyasadeva in the previous chapter has begged for guidance, has begged for direction. The what is lacking, what does he need to do to be satisfied and to purify the whole world? So therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is described as the spotless Purana. The Purana which has no mention of any type of sense enjoyment. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. One very often takes to Dharma with the purpose that I should get some Artha, economic benefit in exchange. And why do you want all this money? Because money is a medium also for obtaining Kama, sense enjoyment. Sense enjoyment doesn't come free, does it? If you want to engage in sense enjoyment, you have to pay. It doesn't matter which branch of sense enjoyment you go to. They all cost money. One once, recently, a devotee came up to me and said, Maharaj, since I became a devotee, he was a household devotee businessman. He just since I became a devotee, my expenses have gone down 50%. I said, very good. I said, how? He said, now I only go from home to office, office to temple. Nowhere else. Previously I would go to clubs, golf courses, and I spend so much money. So, even when you engage in transcendental service to the Lord, and when you avoid these sinful activities, even from an economic perspective, evasion is very good. So, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are appreciated by devotees. And now the Muni says, of the unlimited Supreme Lord. So God is unlimited. You cannot try and understand God with your material senses. Therefore, one of the Lord's many names is Achintya. Achintya means inconceivable. When the Brahman was told that the Lord was passing an elephant through the eye of a needle, the Brahman, who was an impersonalist, could not conceive. How is that possible? The Lord was passing an elephant through the eye of a needle. But the cobbler was uneducated, but a staunch devotee, staunch faith in the personal form of the Lord. When he was told the Lord was passing an elephant through the eye of a needle, he jumped up in ecstasy. And when Narada Muni wanted to test him, he said, you really believe it? Can you even pass an elephant through the eye of a needle? And the cobbler said, if the Lord can plant this huge banyan tree in a small sea, why can't he pass an elephant through the eye of a needle? So the Lord is inconceivable and unlimited. Therefore, when you read about these childhood pastimes of the Lord, or when you read in the pages of the Bhagavatam, the Lord's lifting of Govardhan hill, don't conclude as some foolish people do. This is mythology, this is just imagination, fiction, and it's not a reality. Anything presented in the Vedas becomes fiction and mythology. And anything presented in Western literature becomes the words of God. That is the unfortunate understanding of people, even in India. So, the literature that describes the glories of the Lord, that needs to be propagated. And now the Muni says, it will bring about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literature, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. So what Narada Muni is saying in this verse, that this transcendental literature may have some grammatical mistakes, may have some printing mistakes. Doesn't matter. Did any of you read the Srimad Bhagavatam first canto, original set that Prabhupada translated in India before he came to the West? Okay, if you read that first canto of Bhagavatam that was published by Prabhupada in India before he came to the West, when Prabhupada came to the West, he brought 200 sets of the first canto. When you read the first canto, first presentation, you will find a lot of mistakes. But these were essentially grammatical mistakes. Because at that time, Prabhupada was a one-man army. He was translating the books himself in Radha temple. Then he had a real old typewriter that he used to type with. Then he would take a train on the Tanga and come to Delhi, go to the station. Then when he would come to Delhi, he would go around approaching businessmen, government agencies for financial help. Then he would go and buy the paper. Then he would take the paper to the printer, and it was printed by letterpress. I mean, these days you have these sophisticated printing presses. The letterpress is a small press that operates by hand. And then Prabhupada would also do the proofreading. And then after the proofreading, he would go to the binder and supervise the binding. And after the books were bound, he would personally go to the libraries and stores to distribute the books. So it was a one-man army from beginning to end. So naturally, some spelling mistakes creeped in, grammatical mistakes creeped in. But that did not in any way reduce the potency of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The transcendental message of Godhead that Prabhupada presented very clearly, and people read the Srimad Bhagavatam, and so many of them became devotees. Yeah. As I said in the early days, Prabhupada brought 200 sets of these sets, and people read these books, it changed their life. So transcendental literature may have some defects in the presentation, but now of course the Bhagavad books that come out don't have those mistakes, because now things are different. We have a professional team of editors, proofreaders, printing sophisticated machines and so on. As Prabhupada said, our books are quality inside and quality outside. Prabhupada wanted these books to have very high quality, so the presentation is very high quality, and quality inside. The text, the material in these books is also of top quality. It talks about glorification of the Supreme Lord. So, but even if there is some deficiency, it doesn't matter. Lord Chaitanya was on a tour of southern India, which is nicely described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he came to the very famous historical temple known as Sri Rangam. How many of you have been to Sri Rangam? So it's a very famous temple. And in the Sri Rangam temple, there used to be an uneducated Brahmin who would sit down every day in the same location against a pillar and recite 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. This Brahmana was uneducated. And because he was uneducated, he could not pronounce the shlokas properly. But because he was ordered by his spiritual master to recite 18 chapters every day, he would every day without fail sit down in one place and chant the 18 chapters. And because he was uneducated, he would pronounce many shlokas wrong. And he would not even understand their meaning. But still, he did not get discouraged. And he carried out his duty sincerely. And when he would be reciting these shlokas, he would display symptoms of ecstasy, such as tears come from the eyes, hair standing on end, body trembling. These are also symptoms of shivering in the cold winter. But these were not symptoms of shivering in the cold winter. These were symptoms of ecstasy. So he was displaying these symptoms, and people around him were laughing at him, some of them, because they knew he was uneducated, and they would say, this uneducated man is making a show of being very big, not big fun. But Lord Chaitanya could recognize that this man was displaying genuine feelings of ecstasy. So Lord Chaitanya approached this Brahman and said, what is it in the Bhagavad Gita that makes you reveal these symptoms? But then the the Brahmana explained that I am totally uneducated, sir, but my spiritual master told me to recite 18 chapters every day. So I do it religiously, even though I don't understand the meaning of most of the verses and don't pronounce it correctly. But when I see this picture of Krishna driving the chariot, Krishna becoming Arjuna's Parthasarathi, driving the chariot at Arjuna's request, when I see Krishna's humility in serving his devotee, tears come to my eyes and my hair stands and my body shivers. So Lord Chaitanya, when he heard this, he embraced his Brahmana and said, you say you don't understand the meaning of the Gita, but you have understood the real meaning of the Gita. And he embraced it. And then Lord Chaitanya kept him with him for 4 months and personally taught him in detail the meaning of the Bhagavad Gita. So Prabhupada, in this purport of this pastime, explains that here was an uneducated Brahmana, but he had faith in the instructions of his Guru. And as a result, because he followed it, he in the end ended up getting darshan of the Supreme Lord, because Lord Chaitanya is none else of the Supreme Lord. But this Brahmana was uneducated. He had many discrepancies the way he would pronounce the slokas. But because he was taken with such sincere of feelings, the Lord personally revealed himself and guided him. So the point that we are making is, when we are presenting the message of Godhead, there may be some discrepancy. Someone may not be a very eloquent speaker. Someone may make some grammatical mistakes in the language. Sometimes people in India say, you're Hare Krishna devoted foreigners, they don't pronounce the shlokas properly. Doesn't matter if they don't pronounce the shlokas properly. What is important is the spirit of devotion. So, over here now the Muni is saying, in presenting the transcendental literature of the Lord, even if there's some material discrepancy, doesn't matter, because the message that is being presented is pure. So as Prabhupada said, purity is a fourth. So what is needed today is an environment in which you can create a spiritual revolution. Generally when you use the word revolution, it's a little scary, isn't it? They talk about the communist revolution, even America had a revolution in the early days. But we're not talking about a political revolution or a violent revolution. What we are talking about is a transcendently silent revolution. That is, changing the hearts of people. And we can change the hearts of people by presenting Krishna consciousness, by presenting this transcendental literature. Why do you think our acharyas have encouraged us to engage in preaching? Why does the Lord say that of all types of devotees, the dearmost one who is preaching my glory? Because by preaching, you change the hearts of the contaminated soul. And by preaching, we make people understand what should be the goal of life. So, literature that glorifies the Lord, literature that presents the size of devotional service, is something that should be read, meditated, and followed. And literature that doesn't glorify the Supreme Lord, literature that's only interested in mundane topics, that literature should be avoided. So we read mundane literature only to the extent necessary. Let's say someone is in school or college. So naturally you have to read your mundane literature. Let's say you're in a profession and you want to keep up with your profession, so naturally you have to read some mundane literature. But beyond that, those who are transcendentalists, they don't derive any pleasure in mundane literature. Otherwise you go to these bookstores, they're full of books on fiction, and romance and people take great delight in reading that literature. But that literature It's not going to bring around a revolution in your heart. Rather, that literature is just going to bind you more deeply to a mundane real life. Whereas transcendental literature, which is read, presented, can change the lives of people. And what does it mean, change the lives of people? It means that we change their lifestyle from polluted to purified. Convert crows into swans. That is our business. People are addicted to crow-like habits, and we want to transform them into swan-like